Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Tasneem Abrahams. I'm the founder of the Private Practice Growth Club. And on this channel, we discuss all things growing and starting a private practice in South Africa. And of course, with that mammoth task of growing a business is time management. So if you don't know, I've started a playlist called the Productivity Playlist, where we discuss all things productivity, getting a handle on your time, going from overwhelmed to organized. And so I'm really excited to have my guest on today. Adri, you might recognize her. She was one of my featured practice owners. We spoke about her transition from being a clinician to a life coach. And today she's going to be sharing some of her expertise as a life coach in this productivity space. So Adri speaks a lot about how she went from being overwhelmed, overworked, and really looking for ways to reconnect with identity. And through this process of upskilling herself as a life coach, she discovered a tool or a method called Monday Hour One, which really helped her, as she says, create 5 extra hours in a day and helps her make space for everything that she finds valuable. So welcome, Adri, and thank you so much for joining me again today and sharing your knowledge and expertise.
Thanks, Tasneem. Thank you for the invite. It's always such a pleasure to speak to you and to your audience. It's a privilege, and I'm quite excited to just share with you today. It's really a tool that has changed everything in my life. So I'm excited to be talking to you about Monday Hour One, time management, and how to really increase your productivity.
So you say that when I was speaking to you before, you said that, you really want to teach people to bring balance to their life, to their emotions and their time. And you were saying something that I found really profound, which is that you feel that the relationship with self and how you manage time is actually deeply connected, which I don't think one would normally think, okay, but it's just an executive function, how you manage your time. But you're saying it goes way deeper than that. Can you tell me what brought you to actually have that realization? Was it something that you personally experienced? What was your journey to discovering this connection?
It wasn't hard to see. The how to, what the brain always wants is tell me how. Tell me just how to manage my time. And I would suggest that we've been told how to. And I'm pretty sure on your program also you've given maybe options of all the ways of how to do it. But what is it that's making it so hard for us to just schedule and to follow through, just really keep to what you've scheduled, or to set a goal and plan for it and to just follow through? It's that follow through part, right? And we don't trust ourselves often to follow our plans. And the brain wants to look at the past. It will look at when in the past you've made a plan and then you failed at keeping to the plan and it felt really painful to fail. And therefore your brain would say planning doesn't work. But really what you're telling me is that you didn't keep to your plan. And that is the relationship with yourself. Do you honor yourself? Do you say that you're going to do something and then you do it? Can you commit to who you are? Can you trust your own word? And it wasn't very hard for me to see when I was looking at time management from that perspective, that it was really the relationship with me that was stopping me from being effective with the system that I chose to use.
Okay. And was it a personal journey for you that as well? Because besides that, you are helping other people do that. You've also applied it and seen a change in your life. So what was that change like? What was your life before and now that you've actually discovered this?
So if I look back at my past, and I'm pretty sure everyone that listens to the school will have some sort of a journey. And I had incidences happen in my life that like really shook my identity, that really made me question who I am and where I'm going. And being an occupational therapist, I already had an interest in human behavior. And really, in trying to find who I am and where I'm going, I needed to expand really my journey much deeper into human behavior, which really made me discover the whole life coaching journey. And what I really love about life coaching is that it has a very strong future focus, and time management and productivity just fits into that so deeply. So I came from being constantly overwhelmed and stressed. No matter how hard I worked, right? I was just never feeling that I was getting things done. And I had, especially in one time of my life, but I can probably say for a big part of my life, even before looking back now, just a scattered and an unfocused brain, right? So overwhelmed almost by everything that I had to do. And prioritizing was really hard. And then when you feel so overwhelmed, what we tend to do, and that was totally me, right? It led to procrastination and a ton of anxiety. And I was just feeling exhausted and depleted from putting everybody else's needs ahead of my own and really struggling with setting boundaries, right? So that was me, fed up, like really fed up just with all the interruptions and the distractions, the pings and the messages and the rings and the dings, right? Everything that made it really hard for me to focus. But where my brain went to first is the same as what a lot of your audience will do, is it goes outside of us and it looks at how do we fix this from the outside world? How do we fix the guilt that we feel when we want to relax? Because the moment you stop, you feel like you're being lazy and you have this thought that there's just so many things to do, right? So it was really having to transition from looking to the outside world to fix this for me to really looking inside. And I think maybe the most important thing about my personality is I want practical. I also want process. I want to be able to repeat a tool over and over and over and over, and it has to work the same every time. And that's what I really love about Monday Hour 1 specifically, because it combines my thought work, my emotional work with a very practical how-to tool. And it's keeping me accountable for the relationship with myself while I'm just using something that's very repeatable, very easy to use. And I'm loving it. I cannot say to you, I think what I created in a day when I was younger and when I look at what I'm creating in a day now, it just blows my mind.
And I like what you're saying about at the end of the day, Monday Hour 1 is a tool. Yes. And I think that what I'm hearing you say is so true. It's what I've been saying about on this productivity playlist is that at the end of the day, there are many different ways that you can improve your time management, but those are all tools, and the tool is not what is going to fix the problem.
Yes.
It's how you apply it. So you need to firstly find the one that resonates with you, that works for the way your brain works. But then even if you find that perfect method or tool, if you don't apply it and you don't actually use the tool correctly, then it's actually not going to solve anything. It still has to come from you.
And then the other thing I would say about that, it's like I can show you how to do a somersault and you can watch me doing it 5 or 6 times and you could see exactly what's necessary. But it will still take you 100 fails to learn how to do the somersault. And what I find with just human behavior is the tool is so easy. Like Monday Hour 1 has 4 or 5 steps. It's very easy and simple. Right? But are you willing to learn how to do this through trying and failing and trying and failing and trying and failing and figuring it out? And that's where the brain plays such a big role, because the primitive part of us, the brain doesn't like failure. It feels like pain. And the moment we fail and we feel that pain, the brain wants to quit. So the how-to is easy, but can you go through the 100 fails and figure it out until you can become really good with whichever tool it is that you choose?
Yeah. So on that note, share us your secrets. Tell us the secret sauce. Okay. How do you find 5 extra hours in the day, and how do you have time to do everything? I mean, I follow you on Instagram, so I see you, with on your bicycle, and I see you doing all these free calls and coaching calls, and then you still have obviously the clients that are paying you to do the work. So it seems like you're doing so much. So tell us, how do you go about doing that?
So I do a lot. I'll tell you that I'm married. I have a blended family. So I have 3 students. I have a 2-year-old. I do a little bit of rehab for just my back, and I do Pilates and gym training 3 times a week. I have a nanny from 8 to 5, so I have to get all of that done between that time. I took, by the end of this year, I would have taken 40 days of leave, and I have built my business completely from scratch to be financially completely independent in a 2-year space of time. So I do get a lot done. And the first thing that I would say my secret sauce is before I really just tell you the how-to of Monday Hour 1, I want to just suggest that time is a mental construct. And most of our audience today will think of time as something outside of them. So they decided what a minute, an hour, a day, a week looks like. They decided that 5 days is a work week and 2 days is a weekend, and that we should work 8 hours a day, and that we should get this and this and this fitted into that construct. And most of our audience today will be trying to fit their own lives into that external construct, which, by the way, doesn't really exist. It's just something we made up. And I would suggest this. If I say time is a mental construct, 60 minutes is 60 minutes. It doesn't change, right? But 60 minutes in traffic feels very different to 60 minutes at a great movie.
Oh my word, there's actually a movie, sorry to interrupt you, but there's actually a movie. I talk about this all the time because there's a movie, I can't remember what it's called, but there's sharks in the water, and I think what is his name now? I can't remember what the rapper's name was in there, and he's the chef. So there's like this moment in time where they're like, there's water and the sharks are, this monster sharks are in the boat and whatever, and he says,
Einstein's theory of relativity. Grab hold of a hot pan, a second can seem like an hour. Put your hands on a hot woman, an hour can seem like a second.
So that's exactly what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Yes. And just think about that, right? It's 60 minutes is 60 minutes. So how is it that time speeds up or slows down based on really the thoughts that you have about that hour and the emotion that you're experiencing? And I want our audience to think a little bit how they're thinking and feeling the whole day, because a lot of people that I talk to feel a lot of pain and a lot of suffering for 8 hours. They're thinking these thoughts that it's not working, I'm behind, it's never going to happen, I'm never going to get it done, I'm failing. And you're really making your 8-hour day feel like a 20-hour day by creating that emotion and suffering. And so the secret sauce really for me is this. I've stopped thinking of time as an external thing, and I've started taking responsibility for how I spend my time. I'm very deliberate. I think and choose what I want to create with a week. And I think and choose how I want to create it. And that would be I'm going to teach you how to do that today already. But I want you to just even sit back and just think of what I've just said. Can you take responsibility to not just knee-jerk to the to-do list, but to actually take a moment to think and decide what you want to create with the time? Who do you want to be in time versus trying to fit yourself into time? Make it an internal process. But okay, let me talk to you about Monday Hour 1. It's fun. I love it. I just absolutely love this tool. It is a time management tool, and it will transform how much you get done in a day in way less time, right? But deeper than that, it is about committing to yourself. It's a weekly process that I do, and it starts with, as the name would suggest, it starts with a Monday Hour 1, the first hour in your week. And what you would want to do in that first hour is really start with what I call a mind dump, empty out the brain. So I want you to take a piece of paper and a pen, and I want you to start writing literally everything that you can think of that you need to do. And that is personal things, and it is also private things, all of it. Things you want to do now, things you want to do this week, and things that you want to do in the future. I want you to really just empty out your brain, all of it. And then when you're done, I want you to ask yourself, what else? And I want you to keep going. And then when you're done there, I want you to ask yourself, what else? And I want you to keep going. And you will see that two things will happen. The brain will feel a lot of relief for getting it out. Why? Because the brain was never meant to be a storage facility. The brain is a processor. So as long as you're keeping all that to-dos in your brain will almost like a computer process through all that information over and over. And that's why we end up buying groceries and thinking about the email that we need to send and doing emails and thinking about the dog food that we haven't bought, because the brain will keep just processing that information and over. And it basically signals you that you're behind and that you're forgetting all these things the whole time. I always see emptying the brain as opening a drawer that's really messy. And the only way that we can organize that drawer is we have to actually unpack it. And the emptying out the brain is a method of just unpacking everything that's in your brain. Now, relief is definitely one of the emotions, but overwhelm also appears at that time. Because a lot of people, when you start with this, you're going to have 5 to 7 pages filled of stuff that needs to be done. And you're going to be, oh my word, how on earth in this lifetime will I even finish this? But I want to encourage you. I've been using this system for 2 years, and my weekly to-do list is less than a page. Why? Because I've just got it scheduled. Like all my doctor's appointments for next year, scheduled. When I need to buy my license, scheduled. So I don't like when to buy dog food. I've got like once every 3 months, I'm buying 3 bags of dog food, right? It's scheduled. I know exactly when the next time is that I need to buy dog food that is in time. So my to-do list has become so much shorter because I am so organized. Okay, so step 1, you empty out your brain on a piece of paper, a paper that you can throw away. It's not a to-do list. It's an empty the brain piece of paper. Then the second step, doesn't mean that your audience really want to do, is then to use the superpower of the brain. And that is our ability to be able to decide. And we get to decide ahead of time. We don't need to just decide in the moment. We get to sit in our Monday hour 1 and make decisions for our day, our week, our month, our term, our half year, and our full year. And I want to suggest that there's things on that list that you never have to do. And I want to suggest that there's things on that list that doesn't have to happen this year. And I want to suggest that there's things on that list that can be delegated to someone else. And once we have it out of our brain and we've unpacked it on our table, the opportunity in step 2 is to really just look and think and decide. Really, what do you want to create with your life in this day, in this week, in this month, in this year? And maybe writing your book is important, but it maybe doesn't have to happen this year. Or maybe it does, right? But take a moment to use your most intelligent brain to make decisions versus just knee-jerking on your to-do list the whole day, the whole week, and getting everything done that other people or life thinks is important, but you never get to create the life that you want. Right. So step 3 then is, while it's really in the decision-making phase, I actually want you to decide how long you will take to finish a task. Now, I'll unpack that for you in a moment, because that's one of the challenges people face. They're like, what? You mean I have to decide before I do the task how long I'm going to take? Yes. I want you not to just take however long it takes, or see how long it takes. I want you to decide if you own the time that you need to do this task. And one of the ways that I make that easy for myself is I break tasks down into micro steps. So especially if you're doing something new for the first time and you haven't ever done it, you might be like, yes, definitely, I wouldn't know how long it's going to take if I've never done it. But I say that the intelligent brain is smarter than that. If you break it down to your smaller steps and you decide how long you're going to take to maybe read that first email, how long you're going to take to Google something, how long it's going to take to put maybe your preparation together, and how long it's going to take to maybe practice your webinar, you can fairly accurately start saying how long you're going to take, and then see whether you even own that amount of time to be able to follow through on that process.
And that reminds me also, there's also something called Parkinson's law, which states that the amount of time you allocate something is how much it's going to take.
Yes.
So, like if I, for example, I was supposed to launch the Private Practice Growth Academy at the beginning of this year, and then I only launched it in May. And the reason being is because there were things that I needed to get in place to do it. But because I hadn't given myself like 1 month or 2 months or whatever, it was just dragging because it was filling up the space that I had given it. Whereas then when I realized, like, hang on, I need to do this. And then I said and I literally had 4 months, 4 weeks in order to get everything done that what had taken me like 4 months up to then. And I was able to do it in that 4 weeks because now I had given myself a deadline. So, yeah.
And so that's kind interesting, right? That is the story of all my clients. Like, if you give yourself 4 months, it takes 4 months. But really, it never takes 4 months. It was always ever only going to take 4 weeks. You were just going to spread it out over 4 months.
Yes.
Right? So it's like, how long does it take to write a book? Let's say 100 hours. So you can do that over a year, or you can sit down in 1 month and just get it done. It's never going to take longer than 100 hours. But how long are you willing to give it? Now, sometimes we only have an hour a week, but I want you to decide to give it an hour. How long does it take to build this business that I'm building? If I give myself an hour a week, then I build a successful multi-figure business in an hour a week, right? When you gave yourself 4 weeks, you just did it in 4 weeks. You could have done it in 4 months. And it's neither one of those are wrong, but just notice that it was never going to take any longer. It was always just going to take the amount of time that you were willing to give it. So that's awesome. That's a very good example, right? Okay, so the third step is then to put it on your calendar. I want you to schedule. Now, the brain is going to go, so what type of schedule? I want to suggest that it really doesn't matter. I use an online calendar. I use Google, and I find it fun and colorful and easy to use. And what I love about it is that if I put in my Pilates, then I don't have to rewrite that every week. So it feels a little bit more time effective. And if I want to move one appointment, then I can quickly move all of it. But I don't want you to have drama in your brain about what calendar you use. If you're using a paper version, then I would just stick with that for a moment. It really doesn't matter. The point is that if you don't schedule what you plan to do today or this week, notice that it doesn't get done. If it's not in my calendar, it doesn't get done. That's like, I can have a to-do list on the side and think that maybe there's going to be 10 minutes left somewhere. It never happens that way. Right? So scheduling is one of the most important things that I do in this process. And then the relationship with myself comes in to follow through on that plan, right? And we can talk about the challenges behind that in a moment. But you want to schedule. And I want to say this about scheduling. The first thing I schedule is my personal time.
That's almost like in the financial coaching industry, where they say you must pay yourself first.
Yes, absolutely.
So you're paying yourself in time.
And I already know for our audience today, Tasneem, that everybody's sitting here. One of the biggest complaints is there's no time for me in this calendar. I'm giving up my hobbies. I'm giving up my exercise. But what if you just put that into your diary first? The actual time you want to go to bed, your lunch break, an hour to read the book that you love, that one gym session, right? Whatever it is for you, I would challenge everybody listening today is just start with planning in 1 hour, just 1 hour in a week for you that you put in first before you schedule anything else, right? And then once you've scheduled, I want you to crumple up to that list and I want you to throw it away. And this is really challenging and hard for people, right? It is not a to-do list. It's a mind dump. If you have looked at everything on that list and you have made good decisions about your priorities and you have actually put it in your calendar, it's not necessary to keep the to-do list anymore. Now you have to just trust yourself to follow through on what you have planned. Now, there's different ways that I deal with that, and that's maybe a deeper conversation for another time. And that's watching me do somersaults and then needing to practice how to empty your brain, how to make decisions, how to decide how long it's going to take you, and how to schedule and how to follow through. I want to suggest that even though it's very easy steps, that you're going to have to figure it out, learn, practice, and fail at it to really see how this works for you personally. How I schedule might be completely different to how you schedule. The times that I am available to exercise might be completely different to yours. I might only need 1 hour a week for emails, and you might need 5 hours a day for emails. But I want you to start thinking and scheduling, starting by putting in your personal time. Giving yourself time to go to the toilet and have a coffee and to take a break. Don't schedule yourself coming out of a 3-hour meeting, going straight into the next client meeting. Give yourself plan to need 5 or 10 minutes to just regroup and have some self-care and take a break. And a lot of the clients I work with need to grieve a little bit for the fact that they cannot do 100 things in a day. And they need to grieve a little bit to just for the reality. The point is, you can have the to-do list with 100 things. You're not going to do them anyway. At least when we decide, we end up doing the things that's most important to us. And we're not just knee-jerking into what is available or the next thing that needs to happen.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I think also it's so like you mentioned, one of the steps, obviously, when you have that list, is you have to decide what to do with each of the items. And in the Private Practice Growth Academy, I talk about I call it the card system, where you basically see is for you decide what you're going to chop and cut out and not do. Like it's just not going to happen. And then the A is for either automate or act. So you're either going to act on it, and it's something that you want to choose to do. So in that case, you're going to schedule it, or you're going to automate it because maybe it's something that you can use technology to automate, like a payment, for example. So you don't have to actually do anything. And then the R is to routinize. So for example, like every morning we have the same routine so that we can get everyone at the door on time. So we've routinized that activity. And then the D is to delegate. So that is, if there's something else, so getting an au pair or getting a helper so that you don't have to clean your house. And then you would obviously have to make a financial decision, like, is the time that you are spending on cleaning your house losing more money than it would cost you to pay somebody? Then maybe it's better to pay somebody. So
absolutely,
that is that decision stage. And then once you've processed all of those things on your list, like you say, you actually don't need to have a look at it anymore.
And I would suggest that it is a trial and error. Right? You might decide to clean your own house for a couple of weeks. You make that decision, you schedule that in, and you try it. And at the end of that 2 weeks, you get to evaluate if it's working, if it's not working, and whether you want to do it differently. And then maybe you get to delegate cleaning your house for a couple of weeks as part of a figuring this out process, and you try that. And then at the end of that 2 weeks, you evaluate and you see that worked, didn't it work? What do you want to do differently? And maybe then for the next 2 weeks, you try a combination of those two solutions. And that is why I'm saying you have to go through the 100 fails. Even in the 4 or 5 steps of the Monday Hour 1, that is a very clear how-to. The implementation of that becomes complicated because you have personal thoughts, feelings, and ideas, and your life is unique to you. But what if you didn't have to get this done in the first week? What if you could give yourself a year to become really good at time management and to really understand Monday Hour One, and you were willing to go through the 100 fails to learn to do the somersault? And just learn to every week tweak something and become better at one thing every week. And after 52 weeks, you were a pro at time management. And then you had that skill for the rest of your life.
There's a saying that says, or I don't know where I read it. It's one of these entrepreneurs that said that we tend to overestimate what we can do in the short term and underestimate what we can get done in the long term.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
So because which I suppose speaks to our need for instant results or instant gratification. So when we don't see a result happening fast enough in the now, we feel demotivated, but yet we underestimate, like if we consistently try and fail and evaluate and try and make changes, that within 6 months to a year, how much something can drastically improve, which is what you're basically saying, that you need to be willing to trust the process.
And one of the things I do that I'm non-compromisable on with my Monday Hour One is I always do a Friday Hour Done. Right. I do a lot of evaluation in my life. Like I really take the time to think about what happened this week, and did it work? Did it not work? And what is maybe the one thing that I want to do differently? And we're talking about time management today, but I think this way in regards to my coaching sessions with my clients, my money, my relationship with my daughter, my marriage, what we're eating in the house. I'm very frequently just taking my brain to an evaluation, because then it never feels like a fail. It always gives me the one next thing that I can do to make this better. So I would just offer that to the audience today as well, is to really build in time to, when you're trying something, to evaluate and to create a process that makes it fail safe. It makes it a growth opportunity versus the pain that we feel when we don't keep to a plan and the brain then wanting to quit out of it. The other thing I do in a Friday Hour Done that might be interesting to our audience today is I take a moment. It doesn't necessarily have to be 4 to 5 on a Friday, right? You can evaluate at any point in your week. I don't do it in literally the last hour. I do it on a Friday though, but to just before I go into the weekend, to make some notes on anything that was unfinished, anything that changed and I didn't get it done the way I planned. And I dump that over into the next Monday Hour One. Anybody that didn't call back, anything that derailed. So I just take a moment to just capture that information and I throw it in my Monday Hour One box. And then I can tell my brain that it's not a problem. I don't have to keep thinking about it the whole weekend to remind me that that guy didn't phone back. It's on my list. It's there. I can trust it. When I sit in my Monday Hour One, trust myself to read it and incorporate it into the next schedule, the next week's schedule, if it's important.
And I also like what you say about, just because it's called Monday Hour One, you can adjust according to your schedule. So if you are somebody who prefers on a Sunday night, for example, because your days are so hectic because you're going to sit in traffic and you're not going to be in that space where you can really brain dump. Maybe you want to take a Sunday night before you get into bed. Absolutely. That's your relaxation time where you can where your brain is relaxed, winding down. The weekend was nice, all of those things. And then that can be where you actually do the Monday Hour One brain dump. And then you don't have to, because maybe you work on a Saturday as well in your practice. And maybe Saturday is at the end of a Saturday is when you're going to do your brain dump.
I even have a client that does her Monday Hour One on a Thursday. And she does it on a Thursday. Friday, she slows down a bit, but she wants to be prepared on Monday to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Right. And can I maybe at this time suggest one of the things that people struggle with is that Monday hitting the floor running, the brain will always tell you that it's better to do stuff now than to plan first. And this is what I would offer. For every hour I plan, I create about 5 hours in my life.
Okay.
And the brain wants to just, the to-do list is so long and it wants to just do, it wants to action, thinking that that will make it feel better. But it is a bit of a hamster wheel because that list never really gets any shorter. And that's where we start hustling and chasing to get through it. Yeah. Versus stopping and making the decision, well, what is the 3 or 4 or 7 things I want to achieve in the day, and then focusing the brain to that.
It's kind of like email, because I'm busy recording the series of how to like get control of your inbox. And it's kind of like that. It's like, there's that concept of inbox zero. And what I was saying in my previous video is that one of the problems with inbox zero is you become so focused on the fact that you must have 0 emails that you're just creating another task for yourself.
Yes.
But the reality is the minute you get rid of an email, and then another one is going to come into the inbox. So instead of use the principle behind it and how to manage your inbox, but don't make that the goal. The goal isn't to not have. The goal isn't to clean your to-do list. The goal is to be more effective and efficient in the way that you actually process the task that needs to be done.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there was 1 or 2 challenges that I wanted to just bring up as well when people try Monday Hour 1. The one thing that they're going to have drama about in their brain is this decision of how long am I going to take to do something. And I want to suggest that it's going to be that learning curve of watching yourself for a while, seeing how long do you take on things. It's going to be a combination of just starting to really notice and becoming aware, and practicing the skill of, if you made a decision to let this take an hour and you weren't going to give yourself an opt-out at the end of that hour, you have to just get it done, what is going to become possible for you. And then there's another problem that clients often come with, is like give themselves too much time. And it's almost like what you said about your 4 months versus your 4 weeks. Remember that we will always fill up all the time we give ourselves. So if we give ourselves 3 hours to do something that we can do in an hour, the brain will just distract with a quick Facebook message, a quick email in between. It'll go for a coffee. It'll go to the bathroom. It will just answer a WhatsApp, and then it will use all 3 hours. But it's still, in the end, just takes you an hour, versus you giving yourself a time that's realistic, but a little bit challenging. And you engage your brain to really fill up that space. And then you don't leave time for the distractions. And my brain wants to distract, like all of our brains. The primitive brain wants the pleasure of feeling good. It feels so awesome to kill a few emails, right? We get a dopamine hit from that. It feels awesome to just answer a few WhatsApps. And my brain wants to distract. And then I just say, no, I've given myself this hour. I can do those things after the hour. And I do sometimes build in some, I call it a bit of green time. So where I can just dabble on my emails and answer a few WhatsApps, and it's not that constructive, and allow my brain to go for the dopamine hit, but it's pre-decided. Another thought that our audience might struggle with is that time management is so boring. It's so uninteresting, right? And it's true. It is boring and uninteresting. But it does also create all the results, all the dreams, all the goals that we want in our lives. So it's one of those things that people don't really want to talk about, but it is the one complaint that every client has said to me in my career, that we struggle to balance our time and our work life, and we have all this guilt and overwhelm and anxiety. So it's worth investing in this boring thing. It's like having to eat our vegetables, right? It's a never-ending cycle. To stay healthy, having to eat the vegetables is always on the list. And time management is one of those things. But the fun, it comes when I get the results that I've wanted, when I achieve my goals and my dreams, when I have time off, when I can take 40 days of leave in a year. The fun lies in that. Right. And I think
it's also like one has to think like for everybody, there's different ways that you can get yourself to do the unfun things. So like you gave the example of eating your vegetables. For me, the struggle I've always had is to drink water during the day. Like I'll just forget to drink anything at all. And like then people will say, okay, just have a water bottle with you. But what I discovered, and it's what you said right at the beginning, a lot of the things that you need to change is first looking in yourself and having that self-awareness. So I came to this realization that having a bottle that I could see through, like for some people, it's motivating that they can see like how much water is in the bottle. I actually found that demotivated me because I could see how much water still needed to be drank.
Yes.
So now I've gotten myself a bottle that I can't see through. And I discovered that having a bottle like this, I actually end up drinking the water. And then I'm so proud of myself because I'll be drinking. I'm like, oh, there's no more water in. Oh, wow. Good on me. Because I didn't realize how much I was drinking. And so you kind of have to find what is the thing that will actually like work for you to get you to do it. And like you said, sometimes it's about making just one small, implementing small changes, seeing the difference, and then adding another one and adding another one. And the snowball effect is what you will then end up with.
And that's maybe the most important thing that you and I can say to your audience, right? Is that be willing to learn time management. Don't take this system or any other system, apply it for a week and expect the miracle. It's got to start feeling better very quickly. But to really get to that result, all you need to do today is make that one strong decision that I am going to start managing my time. And then be willing to tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak for 52 weeks in a row to really become the master of that.
And then there's another thing that is also that I think for me, this is something that I struggled with, is that when I do fall off the wagon, it's very difficult for me to reset. So it's also to be kind to yourself, to know that you are going to maybe fall off the wagon sometimes. So for example, I started using this app called YNAB, You Need a Budget. It's a fantastic app, the best app that I can recommend for budgeting. It's a paid app. But what I found was that as much as I believed, and it really changed the way that I manage my money, it's a new habit that I had to develop in order to be consistent with using the app, right? And the process and the rules and all of that. And I would do really well for a while, and then I would fall off the wagon and then fall behind. And you know what? I joined the Facebook group and all of this, and people were like, just reset, start over, start again and get back into it until you get a consistent run that you actually can continue.
I always think of an analogy that we're driving in our car and we get one flat tire. And then rather than just dealing with that one flat tire, we jump out and we slash the other three as well. Right. And it's this happens in our diets, and it happens in our money, and it happens in time management. Is you've spent an hour, you've planned this perfect week, and then something horribly goes wrong. The nanny doesn't turn up, or the children get sick, or somebody else has something important that derails you. And rather than just doing another quick Monday hour one and regrouping, the whole rest of the week becomes overwhelming and chaotic. And it's exactly what you're saying. And maybe this just brings me to the last challenge. What makes it hard for us is really emotional control. It's giving up when we feel the pain of the failure, or when we didn't stick to our decision and we feel not good enough, or when we feel the anxiety of all the overwhelm. And one of the things that's definitely going to come up is you're going to have scheduled something for 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, and you're not going to feel like doing it. Right? I already know that's going to happen for you. Your brain is in that moment going to want to choose the Facebook and the WhatsApp and the killing emails,
especially
and
if it's
anything that feels better. Right?
Yeah,
and you'll know these things in your practice. Like I love looking at certain aspects. Like I love looking at certain stats. Other stats my brain doesn't want to look at, right? And I can spend hours and it feels so productive. But really, it wasn't what I had decided to do. And there is an amount of emotional management that I teach people. How do you do it even if you don't feel like it? How do you get yourself to to overcome that. And there's another way this sometimes works. While you're doing something, you've maybe scheduled something you enjoy, and then the alarm goes off and you have to stop and move into another task. But you have this urge to keep going with what you're doing because it feels so good. And that urge is the same urge that we feel to eat food, right? The urge to drink something, the urge to look at Facebook, the urge we have to sometimes do more than the hour that we set out. And we need to really learn the emotional control of how to honor ourselves and our commitments, and how to fail, how to not give up and quit when it has gone all wrong, because the brain's instinct is to run away from that pain. It goes into a fight or flight. How do you push through that emotion? And that's really one of the things I teach people in coaching, right? Is the how-to is important, and there's all sorts of questions that comes with that. But how do we just manage who we are? Really, how do we manage our thoughts and our emotions to become the person that follows through?
And I think that links back to what you were saying about the evaluation, because instead of seeing it as a failure, if you evaluate what went wrong. So, for example, I use time blocking in my calendar so that I allocate certain things.
Yes.
And what I used to do was have, like say on a Monday, I'll have client work, and then I'll have content creation, and then on a Tuesday. And I discovered that that didn't work for me, because I have a problem with context switching. I have that problem where if I'm doing something I really enjoy, like maybe I'm doing YouTube editing and content creation, now I need to stop because I need to go and do something else, which is a bit more boring. I really struggle. So I continue with that, or I get interrupted with fetching the children. And then when I come back to my desk, I waste time to reconfigure my brain to move from a creative task to an administrative task. So I've actually now readjusted my time blocking calendar so that I have themed days. So I'll have client days, and I'll have creative days, and I'll have admin days. Yes. And I find that makes it a lot easier, even though there's still tasks I have to switch between. It's a similar kind of task. So I'm still being creative, or I'm still being admin.
That's just such an amazing example of using a system. So who says what you should plan on a Monday and that it should have 5 different components versus having a client day and getting all your work done? And you bring up such an important thing is what works with Monday Hour 1 is if you've made all your decisions ahead of time for a whole week in that first hour of your week, it means you don't have to make decisions as you go. What you just described to me is you getting to your time task. It's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, and then your brain going, I wonder what I should do next.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the emotion that you create in that moment is confusion or doubt.
Yeah.
And then the reaction that we have on doubt is to open Facebook, check an email, make a coffee. And then what happens? You do those 3 things and 20 minutes has gone. Yeah. And you come back, and then your brain has exactly the same thought. I wonder what I should do now.
Yes.
And you spin out in that cycle again, right? Yeah. Versus if you took Monday and in your hour 1, you made the decision that even if you had a full client day, this is what I'm doing first and second and third. You literally only have to look up, read what it says in your diary, and your brain doesn't have to go into, I wonder what I should do next. It just literally goes to, next, I'm doing this. A decision has been made. And then it's less about what you feel like doing. It's been decided. You look up, the time is for the next thing. You literally pick it up and you just start.
And it removes so much mental energy from having to make that decision.
Yes.
And I literally, my husband gave me the second screen, and on my second screen, I literally have my Google Calendar up big, and I love that little line that moves down as I go along. Absolutely. And then when I'm like, oh gosh, what's the time? Where should I be now? What time am I supposed to fetch the kids? And I just glance over and I see, the line is there. I'm like, oh, okay, this is where I need to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm very much governed by my line, and I even set alarms on my phone to give me a 5-minute heads up that I'm about to finish. And really, there's a consequence. If I don't get it done in the hour that I set out for myself, I have to reap the reward of paying in my personal time often to get that done. So I've just learned to be really good to get it done in the hour. But And I say this again, you might have to still get to know yourself. How long do you take? And I've watched myself for 2 years, so I know how long I take, even if it's a new task. But you might not start there. Just be willing to learn that about yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, I work with adults with ADHD. So one of the first things we do in the assessment phase is to actually do a time audit journal. So they actually have to write down. And I also say to them, like, even write down, like, when you go to the toilet, when you have something to eat, how long does it take you? And how long does it take you when you come back to your desk to, like, actually, because there's that, I don't think people really underestimate the drain that context switching has. Like when you're moving from one task to the other, the time that is wasted because your brain has to almost like shift itself and like fit into a new activity.
And it takes longer if it's not pre-decided. It's easier to switch if it was pre-decided that you're going to do this, stop there and start with that. And you've already done sometimes I plan for the switching over, right? So sometimes to do the next thing, I have to get out a file. I have to maybe read my last notes on it before I can actually start preparing for this client, for example. So I include that as a task, my switching over, my preparing to switch over, but it's been decided.
Yes.
So my brain doesn't go into, I wonder what I should do with this client. I've built in time to read 5 or 10 minutes to prepare. And so I just allow my brain to have that switch over.
Time,
But it still feels more constructive.
Anxious, because you feel less anxious because now you don't panic. Oh, what should I be doing? Because you've actually built that time in. So you feel calmer when you go into the next. So Adri, I mean, this is the kind of thing that you work with people one-on-one on and in groups, or how does it work? If there are people who are listening to this and they like really resonate with all these things of feeling overwhelmed, having too much on their plate, feeling like they don't have time for themselves, and they feel that maybe they might like to work with you, then how does that work?
So I would invite you to just go onto my website, www.adrigeyer.com, and there's going to be an opportunity there to book a free 60-minute consultation with me. And the value really of that consultation, already, I know an hour of your time is very valuable, is I'm going to help you see what is the patterns, what is the problem that you're having, why is what you've done up till now not working, what is the problem specifically for you. And it's always so valuable for the brain just already seeing what the problem is, because it can start immediately moving out of that. And then, of course, we want to talk about already in that call, how do you move your life forward? And we can talk about how we can work together. But one of the most valuable things that I can offer in that 60 minutes is how the brain does one thing is how the brain does everything. And you'll notice how you put something for Tuesday, 11 o'clock, and then you don't do it. It's the same way how you decide to not eat the pudding and then you do it. And it's the same as deciding I'm never going to spend this amount of money on clothes again. And then you end up doing it. Why? Because the brain has one pattern.
Yes.
And the decisions, the pattern our brain uses to make decisions is one of the things that I want to show you in that call. That is the best value that I can give to you. So come into the call. You are going to find, I'm going to give you that value already, and you're going to see, but where your problem is regards to balance in your life and time management. And we're going to talk about how to solve for that. And then we'll also discuss working with me more intimately. And what do you get from working with me more intimately? It is keeping you accountable for the how-to of a time management system, but really also digging deep into what is your thoughts and your beliefs, what is your emotional management, what is your relationship with yourself, and how do we get you to honor and commit and trust who you are in relation to time.
That sounds amazing. Okay, great. So I will definitely put the links to that in the description box below, so that if anybody wants to book a call, just see if this is what they need, and if it can help them, then they can book that 60-minute free session with you. And I hope that those who feel that they don't need that still got some value. I think there were some great tips that you shared. So thank you so much for coming onto the channel once again and sharing all about Monday Hour 1.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tasneem.
Thank you. Bye.